So good evening, everybody. I'm really excited to be here, talking about creativity and India's equality moonshot. I'd like to, of course, thank Rupa Das from the World Women Foundation, who I had the great opportunity to meet at Davos. I would also like to say that, I really got inspired by her daughter, Ayati, and I was just telling her that that's the reason I have my 7-year-old. And today when I asked her, so how old are you, Ayati? So she said, don't go by my age, go by my attitude. So she's all of 11, and that's what equality and equality moonshot is all about. I'm really excited because the session is called India's Creativity Equality Moonshot. There's lots of changes which is happening in India, and we are in the brink of this transformative, innovative changes. Two of our panelists are jury members, and so that's something which we all are really excited, and of course they'll talk about it more in their own words. We have Anupama and Sonal, who are part of the Cannes Lions jury. We have Neeta, who's obviously a media personality and she's been covering Cannes, and Meera Sarat-Chandra, who's the CEO of Tigress. I love the name. And so I'm going to ask them to talk about that. What's also happening on the equality moonshot part of it is it is time for us to take the audacious action. We can push the boundaries. We can achieve anything which we want. And the changes which is happening on the creative landscape in India is extremely very important, because today we have the women in leadership roles bringing about that change. So I'm going to start and I'm going to ask each of our panelists to sort of introduce themselves, so in their own words they can talk about it. So I'd like to first call Anupama Ramaswamy. She is the joint MD and the creative director for Havas India, and she can self-introduce herself and tell us a bit about her journey. Hi, Anupama. Would you like to sit and do it, or would you like to stand? Okay. So we all can come and sit here.
Yes. Hi. So I'm Anupama, and I've been in advertising for almost now 23 years, and I'm the Chief Creative Officer of Havas India, and that's about it. I head the Delhi, the Mumbai, and the Bangalore office across a lot of brands, and it's been a great journey.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. And of course, I have Sonal next to me. She's the National Creative Director for Leo Burnett. And I know that you've got some awards, so maybe you can talk a bit about those campaigns or award,
So, like Stuti mentioned, I'm Sonal. I work as National Creative Director with Leo Burnett India. I've been there for about 5.5 years now. We've had a pretty fortunate run at Cannes for the last few years, in fact, winning, Grand Prix in Sustainable Development Goals. And we've, in fact, won at Sustainable Development Goals for the 3rd year in a row. And it's something we're very passionate about at the agency. So that's something we're very proud of. Apart from that, I'm a mother. I have a young teenage daughter at home. And yes, that's about me.
So we should all be getting our daughters here the next card. Yeah, that's the idea. And I have Meera on my right. And Meera is the CEO and CCO of Tigress. So please tell us a bit about yourself, Meera.
Okay, now I feel a little old because I've been in the business for 40 years now. And I've been on the Cannes jury 3 times. I've been on the juries of Clio, New York Fest, one show, all of that multiple times. But the thing is, I started Tigress about 12 years ago because I'd already headed an agency both on the business side as well as on the creative side. And it struck me that I should be doing it for myself from now on. So when I relocated back to India from London, I started Tigress, and everybody wanted to know why I named it that way. So it really came about that, when I'm hunting for business, I'm pretty aggressive. And when it comes to my team and my ideas, I'm fiercely protective. So I thought this was a perfect name to have. But it also had another aspect to it, because all my clients were overseas clients, and it helped me manage their expectations. They wouldn't expect to see a white man in a suit. They'll know it's a brown woman from the subcontinent. So it sort of opened the doors for me straight away. We actually specialize in creating new revenue streams for brands, identifying brand niches by disrupting categories. That's our specialty, and that's where we are at.
And of course, our last panelist is Neeta Nair. She's the editor of Impact magazine, and she's been covering Cannes for several years. So, Neeta, please tell us a bit about yourself.
So I'm the lucky one who's had the honor of writing about all these talented women here on the panel. So I'm the editor of Impact magazine, which is part of the Exchange for Media group in India. In my past life, I used to be a TV journalist. So I think I believe both in the power of breaking news, the power of now, and also the finesse that comes with a lot of research. And to tell you, because we are in an all-women panel, I'd like to tell you a little about my organization. About 90% of the department heads in Exchange for Media, be it sales, editorial, events, are women. And it's not because we have some kind of unspoken women quota. It's because they all deserve to be there, and they're the best for that particular job. So I'm honored to be part of this panel as well right now. Thank you.
Yeah. And about myself, I'm Stuti Jalan. I'm founder of Crosshairs Communication for 20 years and Women Inspiring Network, which I created during the pandemic. WIN is, of course, a movement to pay it forward. Crosshairs is a communication company where we work with some 500 plus brands. And I'm really, really anticipating our discussion to be like a thought-provoking discussion on how we can take the equality moonshot and have some action for the future. So now I'm going to ask a common question to all of you. How have women in India, especially in the creative industry, whether it's advertising, whether it's digital marketing, whether it's digital in films, media, overall, successfully broken barriers and redefined their roles in this particular field? So, Sonal, I'd like to start with you.
Sure. In fact, Stuti, one of the biggest examples I've seen is right outside this room. If you walk outside, look up, there's a giant billboard here. It's the biggest one I've seen in Cannes, and it's got Alia Bhatt on it.
I saw the
so
same one.
amazing, you know. And I saw that, and I said, you know, we're not just on the global stages, we are owning the global stages.
Yes,
it's a fantastic
that's
feeling.
exactly the
Yes,
point.
in fact, I've taken a picture of that to share with my daughter. And, you know, it's important for us to see these visuals and see ourselves in those positions and capable of being there, capable of owning it. So, yeah, that's a massive example. But I can see the change happening almost at every level in India. And as you know, as someone from the advertising industry, we're almost responsible also for creating those images, you know, of showing women in that way, showing all genders in that way, not just women, in fact, and showing them possible and capable. And, you know, because images stick, they stay, and they have value and they hold. And that's our job and our responsibility to do that.
Yes. So I also took that picture, by the way. So, Neeta, your thoughts on it?
I have a slightly different perspective. So I give you a background. So I think it was as late as 2016 when India got its first, I'm talking about advertising, when India got its first woman network CCO, and that was Swati Bhattacharya. Of course, we've had powerful women leaders before that, Anusha Bhandarkar and Rhoda Mehta. Rhoda Mehta was incidentally the first person to get the AAAI Lifetime Achievement Award. But she literally had to wait for 24 men to have got it before her to get in line. Many years later, today, I don't see much of a difference. I can still count the number of women CCOs in India on a single hand. So correct me if I'm wrong, but while we are changing, it's not at the pace that I really want to see.
Interesting. Anupama, your thoughts?
Yeah, actually, I was just going to say the same thing what Neeta said, that, you know, while there's lots happening, but it's very, very slow. So whether it's Priyanka Chopra, whether it's a good example back home would be Zoya Akhtar. You know, the amount of time she had to wait to get that first film out, and the amount of people who she had to approach and still not be able to cast and finally cast her own brother says a lot about the industry. But once it's happened, she's changed it, right, for everybody. Now she's put it on almost like everybody knows her, right? That's the power that we are looking for, and much more. And Swati Bhattacharya, such a big name, I would say, for people in India, for women who, and how she's put us on the world stage, right? In the last 5 years, the number of lions that she's won back for us, back home, there's no comparison. So she's definitely one of the few people that, in the advertising circle at least, that we all look up to.
Yeah. And yeah, Meera, your thoughts?
Okay. I have a slightly different take on this because I remember a while back when there were only network agencies. And then the field opened up to allow for independent agencies. And at that time, I thought women suddenly stood up and said, take notice of me. There was Elsie Nanji, there was Tara Sinha, there was Preeti Vyas. And these women actually must have, I feel, felt that why get stifled in an environment which is not conducive to women when I can do it on my own. So I think that was a tipping point in the industry where women said, enough is enough. We're doing it our way, and we're doing it the way we want to do it. That was one thing. And the other thing, in the field of entertainment, if you see what Ekta Kapoor did, she just took over the television serial space because no man was fighting for it. So she just took it and she owned it. So all we need to do is, and that's what we do in Tigris, is actually find those niches, bombard them, explode them, and exploit them.
So I love the thought which you said, own. We have to own. You know, whatever we do, we have to own up to it, strive to do better. And I love the example which we talked about, Alia Bhatt as well as Priyanka Chopra. I remember a client of mine, Crocs, a few years back was asking me who should they take, and, you know, internationally for a global campaign. And everybody recommended Priyanka Chopra. So what she has done, she's sort of crossed boundaries, really made a mark at an international level. So that's really, really commendable. And who are the women who are driving innovation within the media, advertising, and digital sectors in India? Can you share specific examples of female leadership leading to significant changes? I know you mentioned Ekta, but I'd like to know more names. So Neeta, I'd like to start with you.
Okay, I have one name which is right here, present in this room, and I think I'm very impressed with the work she has done. We also put her on the cover of Impact magazine once. That's Anupama, and she worked on this campaign for Paytm, which was called The Divide. So it basically said that, you know, while it's very, very important for women to have financial independence, it's just as important to have financial literacy. So for all the women out there who are earning a hefty salary, you know, making that mark in the world, they were still asking their husbands and their better halves to file their tax returns and do their financial planning for them. So I think that one campaign for me was revolutionary. We have a similar, another person called Benai Fardulani, who works on a lot of campaigns for Tanishq, where she has changed the way marriages are looked up at, and the way, you know, post-pregnancy breaks are looked at as how it should be counted as experience. Even Sonal, I think her, the Missing Chapter campaign that she worked on, that has done a great deal in making sure that kids, young girls, don't drop out of school. So I think we have brilliant examples, but it's just that it should be many, many more.
Yes. And I'm going to actually come back to both of you on your campaigns. That's a question which I'm going to...
She's anyways taken away all the names, all the mentions.
You should not ask me the question first.
Of course, and she's media, so you know how thorough they are with their research.
It'll take us time to think about it. By that time, she would have already said.
Yeah. But so, Meera, I'm coming to you. So why don't you give us specific examples, and then I'm going to ask.
Okay, so one example I can really think of, and I'm pretty chuffed about the whole thing, is I think I did the first campaign for credit cards targeted entirely at women. And at that time, women were just add-ons to daddy's card or husband's card. And that's no financial independence, because everybody knows what you're buying and they have a point of view on what you're buying. That's not independence. So we created a campaign for Citibank, and the Citibank client team was all male, and they were bold enough to do it ahead of their time, and it was a roaring success. And beyond that, my other client, Ford, spotted the campaign and sent it to his Detroit office, and I became part of an 8-woman global women's task force doing automotive campaigns for women. So, if you just decide you'll do it, never mind what the media or the environment is, you will break through. And I just feel that many people are doing this. Anushka Sharma and Priyanka Chopra started their own label banners. Why should you wait for another banner to hire you? Be the banner yourself.
Be the banner yourself. On that note, Sonal.
So I think our work gives us some incredible opportunities, and it is up to us to take them and build on them. So I work quite closely with P&G Whisper, and one of the statistics we found out when I started with it was that 23 million girls in India drop out every single year. 23 million drop out because they don't have access to education about periods. And it might seem like a very, very small thing, and that shows our privilege as well. We are privileged to have access to that information. But these children don't, and as a result, the start of their period is almost the end of their future, because that becomes the end of their education, becomes the end of their life as they know it, makes them fall prey to early marriage, exploitation, all of that. So when we started the campaign, and it's been a 5-year journey now with Whisper on this, we have gone on to work with them on ground. We've done field work with them, research with them. And we realized that we had to really look deeper into finding out what is the problem. How do you solve one of the country's biggest problems? And these are not easy problems to solve, because each one of them have so many tentacles and so many correlated problems. But we started with Missing Chapter, which was like to say that if girls don't know about period and society is not talking to them, their mothers are not talking to them, then schools must talk to them. And the fact is, in India, schools don't have period chapter on periods in curriculum. So that was the whole campaign, and our intent was, how do we make the most hidden, secret, shameful thing in India the most vocal, talked about, loudest? How do we put it on front page of newspapers, put it in the news, put it everywhere where it can't be hidden, because it shouldn't be. And that's the only way to normalize it. So it's been an ongoing effort for 5 years. We're at it. And yeah, it's a journey. It's a journey.
So I just want to add, Sonal, when I actually read your bio and I read about the Whisper campaign, I didn't know you were part of it, but I had seen the campaign digitally. And I remember, so my daughter's like going to turn 8, and I remember at some point I must have had my periods, and the nanny was saying, no, don't tell her anything. And I saw the campaign and I sent her that video and I said, you should see it, because the campaign also talked about how these days, the young girls at the age of 8, it could happen, and it was really, really educational. I said, please watch this video, because it's really important for you to know, because I'm working, but you're taking care of my child, but you should know what's happening out there. And so, that's the level of awareness which that campaign brought about, because it needs to sort of seep into that grassroots level. And it's not like us, but it's like the help which we have in India, and that's where the majority of our population is. And so thank you for sharing that.
I'll tell you a small story about this and how it started, a quick one. But when I started on the campaign, my daughter was 10, and I had talked to her about periods, and I explained the theory of it and talked to her about it. And I thought I'd be there for her, right? Little did I know she would get her period in COVID at a time when I was tested positive. I had to be locked up in the room and talk to her through a phone. And even with all that knowledge, she was a scared 10-year-old, and it was heartbreaking. And I thought, there are millions of girls who don't even have access to this knowledge. Imagine, they think they're dying. I think it brought home the fact that action was really, really critical, and not just awareness. Yeah.
And I went to a boarding school, so I remember the first time we got it, we were all in school. But yeah. No, we didn't think that because others were getting. But Anupama, your thoughts on the...
So, at least in our industry, I would say innovation and women are not there yet. We'll all have to be very honest about it. And it's a very deep-rooted thing that, it's a woman, so let's give her women brands. Okay, so give her a beauty brand, give her clothing, accessories, sanitary napkins, because you're a woman. If it's a tech thing, let's give it to men. And I'm sure everybody has gone through this at some time where somebody has heard, oh, it's a sports camera, it's for cricket. Don't give it to the girls. I mean, this is there even now. It's unfortunate, but it is there. And nothing can be done about it. Like, I gave a hair removal brand to a guy in my team, and he said, Anu, I'm a guy. I said, so? That's the whole point. So you'll have to start somewhere, right? And it's very important. And we've grown up thinking that, oh, our insights on human emotional issues are better. And we've kind of brainwashed ourselves to say, yes, we are better with housewives, we are better with emotion, so let's work on that. That's not true. I can give you an example. About 7 years back, I walked into an automobile boardroom, and there was one woman, and there was me. And there were about 25, 28 men. And every passing campaign, I would be told, Anu, you're very stubborn. You keep coming back with a concept where you put a woman behind the wheels. You know we won't do it. I said, it's okay. I'm also extremely stubborn. I'll keep coming back. You can, at the end of the day, we are in the business of rejection. Advertising is nothing but a business of rejection. So you keep rejecting, I'll keep coming back. Finally, they did put a woman behind the wheel. So these are small little wins that we get. But I think from an innovation lens, I think women need to get in much more into innovation, into tech. Yesterday when we were at the Cannes and the Google presentation was done by this woman talking about all about the tech, it just felt so great, right? So I think there need to be much more, many more around us, and we need to cultivate that.
And so, Meera, now I'm going to come back to you and ask you a question. How are the technological advancements and digital platforms changing opportunities for women in creative industries? And can you provide examples of how digital innovation has empowered women in your field?
So there's always this cliche, oh, we're talking to women. You know about the 4 M's, right? There's marriage, there's maternity, there's mobility, and there's menopause. And that's the way we've been slotted. So what happens to a woman's career when she goes through all these 4 M's? There's a break in career. Now, when you have a digital backbone to your agency, you can work with anyone, anywhere. In fact, I have 0 members on my team. I have everybody as an alliance partner that I'd stitch up for every job. So I put the right people on the right job. Now, it doesn't matter if you're in the M for marriage stage or the M for maternity stage. You are accessible to me via a digital platform. And therefore, I can prove to my client that as a digital agency, I'm proving to you that I can even work digitally. So that's one of the wonderful innovations where you don't allow for a break in service in a woman's professional life. So that's the most important thing I feel is one of them. And of course, when you come to all kinds of technology, women are really very much part of that thing. And there is no discrimination there between man and woman because you know how to use technology. You're God. And India has technology, and women in India are doing brilliantly. Now with AI coming in, I'm sure we'll see how much of India will come up now. Because all of the technology that we know, and fortunately for us, the technology field is not gender discriminating, we'll really shine. And that's where the whole aspect of using digital for communication and hitting those emotional buttons will really work for India.
Really glad you, and that's why World Women Foundation, they're making inroads and having more women participation. I remember even in Davos earlier this year, the number of women participation in every aspect has really, really grown. So that's a very good thing which is happening. And Neeta, tell me, what kind of efforts do you make while covering women in the advertising industries and to keep an equal, if not bigger, spotlight on women?
Okay, so we have dedicated properties like 50 Most Influential Women, where we obviously honor the top change makers of that year. We very consistently come up with cover stories talking about the regressive narratives, if at all, in advertising. And for every panel, just like we have here, we make sure that we have an equal representation of women. But having said that, there's this one point that I'd like to make. One example. There was this one time that it's an annual cover story where we pick the 10 best ads of the year. And we basically research on the ads, multiple forums, and then finally come up with a list of 10. And then we go back to the agencies and we ask them who are the people behind those ads. We came up with a list, and unfortunately for us, the list had 9 men and 1 woman. We put that out because it was a fair process. It wasn't something that we had set out to do from a gender lens. It was just trying to help figure out who are the best names in the industry. Like a few days later, we saw a parody of our cover story, which had 9 women and 1 man on it. That, I think, is a disservice to women. I genuinely feel that in this process, the forced representation is something that we have to avoid. And the onus of showing, the representation increase has to happen from an advertising lens. It is not the onus of the media. Don't attack the symptom. I think we should address the problem. No cover story, I would say, should have 9 men and 1 woman on it. But again, no industry should have such less representation of women in top roles or even relevant roles. So I think that is something that we really need to work on. Don't put women just for the sake of diversity. Put them there because they deserve to be there.
I like the thought which you brought in, and maybe Anupama and Sonal can talk about the kind of campaigns which you have initiated. Of course, you've talked about some of the campaigns and how has the market perceived it. And Neeta brought in a very valid point from a media perspective.
No, I think
because that's the end result. It
Yeah.
needs to originate from you all first.
No, definitely. And I think what Neeta said is very, very relevant. Like there has to be space made for women to get into and have the space for them to grow their potential as well. So I'll give you an example from my own life. I took a break when I had a child. And, there was a few years where I deliberately stepped back from advertising and I was spending time with my child. And when I had to come back to the industry, it was probably the scariest thing ever. Because this is not an industry that's easily accepting of a woman who's taken a break for a while. And to come back with a portfolio that's 5 years older and is 5 years dated is almost impossible in this creative industry. I was very fortunate that the Publicis Group, they didn't judge me by what I had at the time, but what I could deliver. And the fact that I am sitting here today just tells you that they invested in potential that at the time I didn't see in myself either. And, I think that's something that creative industries and our agencies have to do. They have to allow for inroads for people to join. Like today, if I want to hire someone, even at a creative director level, the pool of women that I will find is much smaller than the pool of men, significantly smaller. So if there is a reason that women are starting to drop out at a certain level of, seniority and they can't cope with the balance or whatever, then it's up to us to make the industry a friendlier place for them and to allow for them to be there.
Absolutely, I completely agree, because now, fortunately, that I have come up to a C-suite kind of a position, I just feel you need to work doubly hard to just make it almost equal. You're not equal. You have to overdo it. Sometimes to the extent to make the other person redundant, which is not the right way. You're not setting the right example also, right? Because then that means there is no work-life balance. And that's not what we want to do. But unfortunately, even for you to come to that position and then give more opportunity possibly to women, a few of us have to work a little harder. That's true. On the campaign, I would like to talk about what Neeta said, and that was one of my, I think it is by far one of my favorite campaigns that I have done. And it was purely coming from personal experience. It is coming from when you go to invest in real estate, you're told, why don't you get somebody older? Okay, and you don't understand the meaning, but the older is equal to a man, right? Someone comes to your house to say, okay, I'll tell you about mutual funds or blah blah, and they'll say, oh, your husband's not joining us, and you think that why does he need to join you? It's your money, you can invest it wherever you want. Suppose you get a huge bonus for some reason, and you decide to spend it on your parents. And your friends who are women tell you, oh, that's nice, your husband allowed you to do that. And these are things which are happening around us. And when this happened is when I said, okay, let us do this whole campaign, which is a very simple HR tool. I'm sure many companies follow it, which is they ask you a question and say, if the answer is yes, come one step forward. And if the answer is no, go one step back. And what we did was a very simple exercise. We called a few people, friends, family, stuff like that. They didn't know why they had come. We had made these lovely lines on the floor, and we kept asking them questions, very basic questions. Do you know how to make an omelette? Do you know how to make a cup of tea? Did you learn a foreign language when you were in school? Very, very simple things, till the time the questions start becoming about finances. Do you know how much is the PF? Do you know what's your breakup? Do you know how much you invest? Do you know the papers that you sign? And you wouldn't imagine the faces, how the faces started to fall. They come from well-off backgrounds, could be possibly CEOs of companies, but they did not know. It was we never thought it would be such a huge success. And I'll tell you when I felt the happiest. Of course, people call and say, great work. It went across the world coming back to you. You know, when you become most happy when the WhatsApp forward comes back to you as a saying that, have you seen this campaign? But the best was when I saw a TED talk where a woman finance advisor was talking and started the conversation by saying, you know, a couple of days back I saw this campaign which spoke about this. And that's the reason why I tell every woman she needs to know her finances.
So on that note, I have to add, so recently when my husband was in the United States and he's here, I was going to go for a real estate, and I had a school friend of mine who's a lawyer. So we both walked in and they're like, will you be buying? I said, of course I will be the one who's buying. And I remember on my husband's return, I just said two minds are better than one. But then, you know, everybody started talking to him, but it was really sweet of him. And then he turned around and he said, no, she's the decision maker. Please address all the questions to her. I'm just here to be like the second year, just to, you know, if some points are missed out. And I must say, on your point, actually I have an all-women's team in my communication business. And I always tell them, there are people in my team who started as interns. Now there are people who've gotten married. Someone lost their husband, got married again. They've had kids. But I said, take a break, but come back after a few months. Work for a few hours if you can't work the whole day. But don't have a complete break. Even if you can just do like 2 hours a day, like, you know, it's fine. Just give me 10 hours, but don't get completely disconnected. I'll give you all the flexibility. So I've had a team who's been there with me like for 15 years, 18 years. So I'm happy. So it's an all-women team. So now we sort of, I'm going to ask this question to everybody. How are the Indian women in creative roles influencing our global perceptions of the Indian cultural and economic landscape? And what impact does India's position have globally? From a Cannes perspective, from a creative perspective. Please throw some light. Neeta, maybe we'll start with you.
I think with regard to the portrayal of women in advertising and, you know, how we're also taking it globally, there used to be this phase when the self-sacrificing woman was most respected and glorified. I think over the past few years, I have seen a a big change. You don't see those, while you do see a fair amount of women who are, packing kids' tiffins and making sure the husband's laundry is done, and also being that boss in the boardroom. There are narratives that have started to come, which is about, a woman wanting to choose herself. Maybe she doesn't want to juggle all those 100 roles. Maybe she just wants to do one and to be damn good at it, just like a man can. So I have seen that narrative change, and wherein I think I can tell you about a WhatsApp ad where a woman is discussing with her sister that I don't want to have kids. And how do I tell my mother about that? And she says it's completely fine, it's normal. So there are these narratives that have come to fore, and I think advertising has had a very big role to change those perceptions. I mean, it was the norm in the West, but for India to get there, I think it has taken a while, but now we're strongly hammering that.
And I must add, it's not just advertising, it's also the media reports, overall, not just from a campaign perspective, but overall how the media, especially in India, has started talking about women in leadership roles, on the C positions. There has been a lot of inroads, in terms of inclusivity, and from the ministry, from the government. So those are really good steps overall. Meera, your thoughts?
So there was a time when an actress's life started with her first film and ended immediately when she started being seen with a man or dating somebody, because her career started to tank. Because once she's married, she's no longer saleable for any film. Now, if you see what OTT has done, it's opened up the entire space. You have edgy films with women as protagonists, and they can be of any age. They can come back after 10 kids. They still have a role to play. They have such opportunities now that they never had before. So I think even in the OTT space and in the cinema space, you're finding that what used to be a very short-lived career is now becoming prolonged, and you don't have to come back as somebody's mother or sister. You can come back as a heroine in your own right. So that's another great point to make.
And so, your thoughts?
Again, I mean, advertising is today a $4 billion industry worldwide, right? And all of our work is in the form of creating visuals for the world. So for us, I think we will not even have actually visibility on the impact or the power that we have to create an impact, because the visuals we create will be those seeds that will, change things and impact people. And we will not know what impact we are having, but it's our responsibility to put it out and see that happen. So I think that's what, there is a changing narrative. Yes, do more things have to be done? Yes, a lot more has to be done. I just like to keep the rose-tinted glasses on, and I like to see the positive, because I think sometimes when we keep our eye on the potential, it keeps us working harder towards our goal.
Having said all of this, but from women who have put us on the global map, the one person I always say is Indra Nooyi. She's there, and she was there forever, and she just made it in the world, in the corporate world, to be part of the Pepsi network. What an achievement! And she will be inspiring a lot of people back down here. And I would say in India there are many like that, and I've been fortunate enough to work with them, whether it is Deepika Warrior, Ruchira Jetli, even Anuja Mishra of Mamaearth. They're all trying to make their own space in this whole environment.
And we're sort of reaching the end of our session. So any inspiring message for the creative women in our country, one line each. Neeta, we'll start with you.
Okay, I think one thing that we do is we clap hard for the success of everyone else that we know in our lives. But when it comes to celebrating yourself, I think we take a step back. I think for all the women out there, I think you should clap the loudest for yourself first. you really don't know who's watching and who's going to get inspired by your journey. So I think putting yourself out there is of prime importance.
Slightly adjacent to that is you've got to respect yourself. Because if you don't respect yourself, you cannot expect it of anybody else. And to respect yourself, you need to really work towards being something that can be respected. So you've got to put in the hard yards, have the stomach, the stamina, and the staying power, and then respect yourself and then demand it of others.
I'd like to leave it on an action point, perhaps, like each one hire one, maybe hire someone that you think might have the potential, give them that break, and let's have more, people of all, types and genders in the mix. I think it's the tangible thing to do.
I've been saying this now for a while, that get out of the good girl syndrome. From childhood, we are told, be the good girl, be the good wife, be the good mother. It's okay. It's fine to make mistakes. You'll learn from it, you'll only become better.
Yeah, I think so. And we should all pay it forward. And as we conclude, thank you so much, Rupa, for giving us this opportunity to, talk about from an India perspective. And really, really grateful to the World Women Foundation. And you all have inspired us, and I hope we can inspire the women in our country. And the Equality Moonshot is really important. We have to have a more inclusive future, and we should continue to support each other, and share wherever we can support each other. And now may I request for all of us to take a group picture, and Rupa, please join us for it.